As Justin kicked and thrashed, the wavy motion of a yellowish creature rippled the water 5 feet away, then 3 feet, then one. Two heads breached the surface and sank their teeth into his neck. Wet, choking gurgles cut short Justin's yell as he went under. Seeping blood dyed the river water red. The girl's screams echoed against the skyscraper's looming flatness.
April 17, 1893. The absolute first thing I notice upon entering the Cook County Insane Asylum is its insufferable stench. I believe it is a mixture of hundreds of unwashed bodies, mixed with soot, rat droppings, and human waste. Among these odors are the traces of other substances, such as rotting food and the sharp sting of chloroform. I'll say again, I really liked your stories because I am a special aficionado of nautical horror. That's probably my favorite genre. It is, a new nautical horror stories and novels. That goes at the top of my to be read list usually. So
Yeah,
I want to
I
ask
don't
you,
think when I started writing horror, I didn't even realize nautical horror was a thing or a subgenre or anything like that. But then I find myself writing it pretty often because there is something terrifying about water, even if it is just the Chicago River. And I say that because I live around here and I've seen it a million times. But if you weren't from here, it's scary. Plus, it's deep, so you don't know what's under there. And there's all these old stories about how the river used to be so polluted, and there used to be slaughterhouses, and they would put all of their garbage and everything into the river, and human waste and things were in there. Probably more in the time period of your story, actually. But the Chicago River certainly has a sordid past. So I thought, why not bring that into the present? Because you know it's still scary, I think.
yeah,
Um,
no, you're right. A sordid past, absolutely. Like the ecological aspect of it for sure, but also just the tragedy of like loss of life and drownings and the Eastland disaster that happened. I think it was 1915. I spent a lot of time reading about the Great Lakes, and I think that and all of its surrounding rivers and lakes around the Great Lakes, and it's just there's so much history and lore that really is still to be just kind of dug out and told and retold. It's still there. There's books on it, but there's so much that's still there in it.
but it still really caught my imagination to think, the Chicago's a very old city, and it's been a lot of things have probably landed in there, and people and animals and anything you could possibly imagine in your worst nightmares. So, that might be only the first time I've written about the Chicago River. I might have to do some more, just because it's so, it's an intriguing place.
There's so many different aspects of its history, like the human tragedy, but also just the engineering and everything. So it's super fascinating. So when I read your
It
story,
is.
your story is just another contribution to the lore of the river. So that's kind of cool.
I
Yeah.
try, I thought what monster could be in there? A true horror story monster, right? But I'm glad you talked about history because I tend to set a lot of my stories in the present day because I feel like personally there is a lot scary about just being alive at any time, really, but even in the modern day. So, and I don't read a lot of historical fiction, but I feel like you probably do, just because your story was so rich with detail about the Dunning Asylum and about that time period of the late 1800s. Even the language was so really true to that time. Like the word choice and everything like that of your two characters that were writing their letters or their journals or whatever they were writing there. Um, and
Yeah, no,
I wondered if you had written more historical fiction and if you could tell us, your inspiration for this particular story.
I would say most of my stories are set 50, 100 years ago. I really enjoy reading microhistories, books about not you not I instead of reading about like a book of the a survey of the Renaissance or something. I would read about one single event that took place like in one summer in one place, and it's really rich in detail and gives you a sense of how the people lived in a specific year and summer even. There's I really love those histories, especially when they're really obscure. And I always feel like I'm inspired to write something around it.
Hmm.
And it's almost like my charge to tell more people about it, especially if I come across it like in a magazine or something, and then I look to see if there are any books about it. And I can't find it, and that sends you down the rabbit hole. And that's what I really like about the Dunning Asylum, because I haven't seen or come across any like definitive book about the Dunning Asylum. I don't think it's out there, but it's right on the side of the of Wilbur Wright College. So my story begins with discovery with the Wright College
Yeah, with him
construction.
unearthing this old
Mm-hmm.
set of documents while it's under construction. Yeah, I find that so fascinating. I absolutely love stories like this where there's just buried history. There's
Yeah,
so much to work with there, and there's so many people's stories that have been lost, and could probably be told.
part of the inspiration of the detail, it did come from a few sources that I came across online, but I knew where I wanted to go when I wanted it to create the atmosphere environment of Alan Moore's From Hell. And there's a few parts when they're in like 1880s asylums in London. So I just looked at the artwork and I wanted to capture that somehow through like just the language. I don't I that inspired me to do it. It really was a place right out of like a Charles Dickens novel, like in sooty, just poverty-ridden Victorian England.
I loved just really feeling like I was there, and down to the terrible stench and everything like that.
That's the most terrifying thing. It's one of those things where it's like just the cruelty and injustice that took place in these places. It's like I don't even have to write like a horror story. I can
Right.
if I write about the Dunning Asylum and not even put any fiction in it, it'd probably be just worse than anything you can come up with.